Hey there, sports fans! Noah here with another exciting edition of Sports Day Tribune. Today, we've got some serious news coming out of the WNBA, and let me tell you, it's a doozy. But before we dive in, I want to give you a heads up. Stick around till the end, because we've got some juicy details about one of the WNBA's rising stars that you won't want to miss. Trust me, it's worth the wait. Now, let's get into our top story. The WNBA and the Las Vegas Aces are finding themselves in some hot water, and it's not the kind you'd want to cool off in after a tough game. LA Sparks. Forward. Dearica Hamby has filed a lawsuit against both the league and her former team, and the allegations are pretty serious. Now, I know what you're thinking. Another day, another lawsuit in professional sports. But this one's different, folks. We're talking about pregnancy discrimination, and it's got the potential to shake up the league in a big way. Let's break it down. Hamby claims that the Aces and the WNBA engaged in acts of intimidation, discrimination, and retaliation that ultimately led to her being traded from the Aces to the Sparks. And get this, she initially filed a federal discrimination complaint back in September 2023. But now, she's taking it to the next level with this lawsuit. Hamby's attorney didn't mince words when they released a statement about the situation. They said, "The WNBA is, at its core, a workplace, and federal laws have long shielded pregnant women from discrimination on the job. The world champions Aces exiled Dearica Hamby for becoming pregnant, and the WNBA responded with a light tap on the wrist." Now, that's a pretty bold statement, and it gets even more intense. The attorney went on to say, "Every potential mother in the league is now on notice that childbirth would change their career prospects overnight. That can't be right in one of the most prosperous and dynamic women's professional sports leagues in America." Let's take a moment to let that sink in. We're talking about a league that's supposed to be at the forefront of women's empowerment in sports, and here we have allegations of pregnancy discrimination. It's a tough pill to swallow, and it raises some serious questions about the culture within the WNBA and its teams. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with the legal side of things, there's something called the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. Basically, it says that discrimination based on medical conditions, pregnancy, and childbirth is a type of unlawful sex discrimination. So, Hamby's got US law on her side here, and that could spell trouble for the Aces and the WNBA if the court rules in her favor. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This isn't the first time we've heard about this situation. After Hamby filed that federal discrimination complaint I mentioned earlier, the WNBA actually looked into the matter. They investigated the allegations, which claimed that the Las Vegas Aces were unfair to Hamby during her pregnancy, and ultimately traded her to the LA Sparks in January 2023. So, what happened after that investigation? Well, the league took some action. They suspended Aces coach Becky Hammon for 2 games. The reason? Apparently, Hammon questioned Hamby's commitment to the team during her pregnancy. Now, I don't know about you, but questioning a pregnant woman's commitment to anything seems like a risky move, especially in a professional setting. But the suspension wasn't the only consequence. The Aces, who are the reigning WNBA champions by the way, were also forced to forfeit their 2025 first-round draft pick. That's a pretty big deal in the world of professional sports, where draft picks can make or break a team's future. Now, you might be thinking, wow, that seems like a pretty serious punishment. But here's the kicker. Hamby and her legal team weren't satisfied. In fact, they referred to the WNBA's sanctions against Las Vegas as a light tap on the wrist. Ouch. So, what does all this mean for the WNBA and the Aces? Well, it's hard to say for sure, but it's definitely not good news. We're talking about potential long-term consequences here, both in terms of public perception and the league's ability to attract and retain top talent. Think about it. If you're a young, talented basketball player considering a career in the WNBA, and you hear about this kind of alleged discrimination, how does that affect your decision? It's not just about the immediate impact on Hamby and her career, it's about the message it sends to every woman in the league and every aspiring WNBA player out there. And let's not forget, this is happening in 2024. We're well into the 21st century, And we're still dealing with issues of pregnancy discrimination in professional sports. It's a stark reminder that, despite all the progress we've made in women's sports, there's still a long way to go. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the broader implications of this lawsuit. It's not just about one player or one team, it's about the entire culture of professional women's basketball. The WNBA has long positioned itself as a progressive league, one that champions women's rights and equality. But cases like this make you wonder if that commitment goes beyond just talk. We've seen similar issues pop up in other sports. Remember when Serena Williams talked about the challenges of coming back to tennis after having a baby? Or the ongoing fight for maternity leave and protection in women's soccer? It seems like no matter where we look in women's sports, the issue of pregnancy and motherhood keeps coming up. And here's the thing, it shouldn't be this way. Being a mother and being a professional athlete shouldn't be mutually exclusive. We've seen plenty of examples of women who have successfully balanced both roles. But for every success story, there are probably dozens of women who have faced discrimination or felt forced to choose between their career and starting a family. Let's think about the message this sends to young girls who dream of playing professional sports. Are we telling them that they can't have it all? That they have to choose between being an athlete and being a mother? That's not the kind of message we should be sending in 2024. Now, I'm not here to pass judgment on the Aces or the WNBA before all the facts come out. That's for the courts to decide. But I do think this case raises some important questions that we as sports fans, and as a society, need to grapple with. How do we create an environment in professional sports where women feel supported, whether they choose to have children or not? How do we ensure that pregnancy doesn't become a career-ending event for athletes? And how do we hold teams and leagues accountable when they fall short of these ideals? These aren't easy questions to answer, but they're crucial ones if we want to see women's sports continue to grow and thrive. And let's be real, we should all want that. The level of talent and skill in the WNBA is off the charts, and these athletes deserve to compete without worrying about whether starting a family will end their careers. Now, let's circle back to Dearica Hamby for a moment. This lawsuit isn't just about her personal situation. It's about setting a precedent for all the players who will come after her. If she wins this case, it could lead to significant changes in how the WNBA and other women's sports leagues handle pregnancy and maternity leave. But even if she doesn't win, the fact that she's bringing this issue to light is important. It's sparking conversations, making people think, and hopefully, pushing the league to take a hard look at its policies and practices. And let's not forget, this is happening at a time when the WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth and popularity. The league has been making strides in terms of viewership, sponsorships, and overall recognition. But cases like this remind us that there's still work to be done behind the scenes. As we wait for this lawsuit to play out, it's worth considering what changes we might see in the WNBA and other women's sports leagues. Will we see more comprehensive maternity leave policies? Better support systems for players who choose to become mothers? More flexibility in contracts to accommodate pregnancy and childbirth? These are the kinds of changes that could make a real difference in the lives of athletes. And who knows? Maybe this case will be the catalyst that brings about those changes. As we wrap up our coverage of this story, I want to remind you all that this is an ongoing situation. We'll be keeping a close eye on how it develops, and you can bet we'll be bringing you all the latest updates right here on Sports Day Tribune. But hey, don't go anywhere just yet. Remember that juicy info I promised you at the beginning? Well, stick around, because coming up next, we're diving deep into the personal life of one of the WNBA's most exciting players. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. We're talking family, relationships, and some surprising facts that might just change how you see this rising star. So, stay tuned, sports fans. We'll be right back after a quick break. Now, moving on to our next segment, we've got some fascinating insights into one of the WNBA's most intriguing players. Remember when I said we had some juicy details coming up? Well, here we go. We're about to dive into the life of Dearica Hamby, and let me tell you, there's a lot more to this athlete than what you see on the court. Now, if you've been following the WNBA, you've probably heard Dearica Hamby's name quite a bit lately. She's been making waves both on and off the court, and for good reason. But today, we're going to peel back the layers and get to know the woman behind the jersey. Let's start with the basics. Dearica Hamby is currently playing for the Los Angeles Sparks in the WNBA. But her journey to the big leagues is a story worth telling. Hamby started her basketball career at Wake Forest University. And let me tell you, she left quite a mark there. She's not just any college player. She's the all-time leading scorer and rebounder for Wake Forest. We're talking 1,801 points and 1,005 rebounds. That's the kind of record that makes scouts sit up and take notice. But Hamby didn't stop impressing people once she hit the pros. During her time with the Las Vegas Aces, she picked up the 6th Woman of the Year award. And not just once, but twice, in 2019 and 2020. For those of you who might not be familiar with this award, it's given to the best performing player coming off the bench. Basically, it means Hamby was bringing her A game every time she stepped on the court, even when she wasn't in the starting lineup. Now, let's talk about her move to the Los Angeles Sparks. In the 2023 season, Hamby was traded to the Sparks, and it seems like the change of scenery has done wonders for her game. In the 2024 WNBA season, Hamby has been absolutely killing it. We're talking about 19.2 points, 10 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. Those are starter numbers, folks. And get this, she's already surpassed her previous records for rebounding and points scored. It's like she's found a whole new gear in LA. But Hamby's talents aren't limited to the traditional WNBA format. In 2023, she was part of the USA team that won gold in the FIBA 3x3 AmeriCup. For those who don't know, 3x3 basketball is a faster, more intense version of the game that's been gaining popularity in recent years. The fact that Hamby can excel in both formats just shows how versatile and skilled she really is. Now, I know what you're thinking. Noah, this is all great, but you promised us some juicy details. Well, don't worry, I'm getting there. Because as impressive as Dearica Hamby is on the court, her life off the court is equally fascinating. Let's talk about Dearica's better half. Hamby is married to Alonzo Nelson Ododa. And guess what? He's also a basketball player. Talk about a power couple, right? The two of them met in Atlanta, where they both grew up. It's like a basketball love story straight out of a movie. Now, Alonzo's got quite the basketball background himself. He played college ball for the Richmond Spiders and later joined the Pittsburgh Panthers. But his career didn't stop there. Alonzo took his talents overseas and played for the Danish Superliga in Denmark. That's right, we're talking international basketball experience here. But here's where it gets interesting. As of August 2024, Alonzo is 31 years old. He was born on February 2nd, 1993, for those of you keeping track at home. And while he's got an impressive basketball resume, it seems like he's taken a step back from professional play. His last professional games were back in 2021. Now, we don't know exactly what he's up to these days, but it's clear that basketball has been a huge part of both his and Dearica's lives. And speaking of family, let's talk about Alonzo's parents for a moment. His father is Sebastian Ododo, and his mother is Heather Nelson Ododo. And get this, basketball runs in the family. Heather used to play basketball for Huntington University in Kenya. It's like the sport is in their DNA or something. Alonzo's also got two siblings, a sister named Olivia and a brother named Isaiah. He's the eldest of the three, which probably came in handy when he was teaching his younger siblings some basketball moves in the backyard. Now, here's where things get really exciting. Dearica and Alonzo aren't just a power couple in the world of basketball, they're also parents. And let me tell you, they've been busy. The couple welcomed their first child, a daughter named Amaya, back in February 2017. But they didn't stop there. In March 2023, they added to their family with the birth of their second child, a son named Legend. Can we just take a moment to appreciate those names? Amaya and Legend. It's like they knew their kids were going to be special right from the start. And with parents like Dearica and Alonzo, how could they not be? Now, being a professional athlete and a parent of two young children can't be easy. We're talking about grueling practice schedules, travel for games, and the physical demands of playing at the highest level. And on top of all that, Dearica and Alonzo are raising two kids. It's a juggling act that would make a circus performer jealous. But here's the thing. Dearica seems to be handling it all like a pro. Remember those stats I mentioned earlier? The 19.2 points, 10 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game? She's putting up those numbers while being a mom to a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old. If that's not impressive, I don't know what is. And let's not forget, Dearica was pregnant with Legend during the 2022 WNBA season. That means she was playing professional basketball while carrying a child. Just let that sink in for a moment. Most of us get winded walking up a flight of stairs, and here's Dearica Hamby, running up and down a basketball court, fighting for rebounds, and sinking shots while pregnant. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? When we watch these athletes on TV, it's easy to forget that they have lives off the court. They're not just players, they're people with families, responsibilities, and challenges just like the rest of us. The difference is, they're dealing with all of that while also performing at the highest level of their sport. Now, I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier. The fact that Dearica has already surpassed her previous records for rebounding and points scored this season. Think about that for a second. She's a mother of 2, including a 1-year-old, and she's having the best season of her career. If that's not a testament to her dedication and skill, I don't know what is. But it's not just about the numbers. Dearica Hamby has become a leader on her team. She's the kind of player that elevates everyone around her. And when you consider everything she's juggling off the court, that leadership becomes even more impressive. She's not just leading by example on the court. She's showing that it's possible to have a family and a successful career in professional sports. And let's be real, that's not always an easy message to send in the world of women's sports. We've seen countless examples of athletes who've had to put their careers on hold to start a family, or who've faced discrimination because of their decision to become mothers. But players like Dearica Hamby are changing that narrative. They're showing that motherhood and athletic excellence aren't mutually exclusive. Now, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but I think it's worth noting the impact that players like Dearica can have on young fans. Imagine being a young girl who loves basketball, watching Dearica Hamby dominate on the court. And then imagine learning that she's doing all of that while also being a mom to 2 kids. That's the kind of role model that can inspire a whole generation of athletes. But let's not forget about Alonzo in all of this. While we don't know exactly what he's up to these days, it's clear that he's supporting Dearica in her career. And that's huge. Behind every successful athlete, there's often a support system making it all possible. In Dearica's case, it seems like Alonzo is a big part of that system. And you know what? That's another important message. It shows that in a relationship between 2 athletes, it doesn't always have to be a competition. Sometimes, one person's career might take center stage for a while, and that's okay. It's about supporting each other and working as a team, both on and off the court. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground here, but I think it's important to step back and look at the bigger picture. Dearica Hamby isn't just a basketball player. She's a wife, a mother, a leader, and a role model. She's breaking records and breaking stereotypes, and she's doing it all with a level of grace and skill that's truly impressive. But here's the thing. Dearica's story is still being written. At 29 years old, she's in the prime of her career. Who knows what records she might break next? What championships she might win? What barriers she might break down? And let's not forget about her kids. Amaya is 7 now, old enough to really start understanding what her mom does for a living. Can you imagine what it must be like for her to watch her mom play? To see thousands of fans cheering for her? And little Legend, he's going to grow up with a mom who's a WNBA star. That's got to be pretty cool. So there you have it, sports fans. A deeper look into the life of one of the WNBA's most fascinating players. Dearica Hamby, athlete, mother, trailblazer. Remember that name? Because something tells me we're going to be hearing it for years to come. That's all for today's edition of Sports Day Tribune. I'm Noah, reminding you to keep your head in the game and your eye on the ball. Until next time, sports fans.